Hello, hello, hello. Welcome again into 101.7 FM and 710 Keel. Welcome into this edition of Strategies for Living. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. You are PLPC Carla McCormick. How you doing?
It is I. Hi,
It is
Dave.
you. It is you. How are you, Carla?
I'm good. Tomorrow's Friday. Woohoo!
You're all excited, aren't
I
you?
am.
Well, there's something else to be excited about today, but before I tell you that, there's a couple of things to be excited about today. But before I tell you that, let me introduce our ace of the airways. He's flying as high, low, and in between. He is Rapid Ruben Wright.
Good evening.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
And so the thing I'm most excited about is our life strategist today. We're Denisa Walker.
She's my favorite, too.
From Learning RX here in Shreveport is our life strategist. But the other thing that I'm excited about, and we're going to talk about how to get our kids prepared for school.
Okay.
Because school's just around the corner. But I'm also excited. Ruben, you and I could sing "Happy Birthday" if we want to. We can ask Carla to join us because you know whose birthday it is today, right?
Is it yours?
No.
Is it?
Carl Jung.
Oh.
born on this date.
No, I'm not saying happy birthday to Carl.
You're not. 1875, July the 26th, 1875. And of course, Dr. Jung has been considered widely one of the greatest thinkers of the 20th century, and he broke from Dr. Freud.
Are you a Jungian?
I like Jung, I really do, and his impact. I mean, it's really he had kind of a revolutionary psychoanalytical approach. That has really impacted not only psychology but philosophy,
Yes.
mythology,
Yes.
anthropology, theology, and the arts. And think about his concepts. Think about the concepts that he gave us: archetypes and persona and the collective unconscious, synchronicity. We talk about that a lot here.
We just talked about that yesterday.
Yeah.
When did he die?
Oh, in the 1950s or early 60s.
I was going to think.
Yeah.
I think it was early 60s.
Yeah, I think it was the early 60s. I'll get back to you on that. I don't have that in front of me.
Born.
But he did the introvert, extrovert. Come on, Carla.
That wasn't me.
Yeah, it wasn't you. Anyway, happy birthday, Carl.
Happy
Carl
birthday.
Gustav. And I've got my beta fish in my office. I mean, I had a blue one, and he was Siggy. But Siggy passed away, and
Womp, womp.
so I got a red one, and it's Gustav.
Gustav.
Yeah, because it's Carl Gustav Jung. Yeah.
You're such a nerd.
Did she just say that?
Yeah.
Did I hear her say that?
On open airway.
Okay, well, you've got the microphone button. Cut her off. Folks, thank you for tuning into Strategies for Living. We're brought to you by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. Been helping individuals and families now for 60 years. We're also brought to you by Jerry Anderson, State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacobs Well Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. We will be back to talk about how do we get our kids ready. How do we do this? How do we get our kids ready to go to school right around the corner?
Back to school.
Back to school. Denisa Walker, our life strategist today. Stay with us. A lot to learn, more to come. If we're talking addiction prevention, education, and treatment in Shreveport-Bossier for 60 years, we're talking about CADA. Let's talk about addiction. Let's talk about treatment. Let's talk about getting your life back. The Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, CADA, has been helping individuals and families in Shreveport and Bossier City for 60 years now. CADA provides intensive residential treatment as well as outpatient services too. CADA treats women with children, pregnant. And welcome back. Welcome back into 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back into Strategies for a Living. PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan. Let's welcome to the program now the executive director of Learning RX in Shreveport Bossier Brain Training Center. She is Denisa Walker, and we are so pleased to have Denisa back. You've been away too long, so thank you for being back. I know you've been busy and all that kind of good stuff.
I have been that. It's been a different kind of busy, but it's been busy.
Busy summer.
Yes.
Maybe we'll talk about that one day.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about today is, it doesn't seem like it. Where does the time go? Here we are at July the 26th, and school starts
next week.
Yeah.
Teachers are already back in.
Yeah, Bossier comes back, has to report?
8th.
And
Caddo's the 13th.
Caddo's the 13th. That's when students come back, right?
Yeah, the teachers are already back. Yeah, teachers have already started back in both districts, principals and such as that. So it's busy times. You know, there's that thing. What are the 2 reasons that parents appreciate teachers?
Summer.
June and July.
Oh,
that's it. Used to be 3 reasons because we used to have August too, right?
Yeah, and August no
is
more.
Gone now. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Before let me get an opinion. Do we get? Is that a good thing that we because we're not the other places in the country? I mean, there's some places that don't start school again until after Labor Day. Of course, they go into maybe June, but do we put our kids through too much? There's
a lot of thoughts out there and a lot of research out there. The year-round school theory is one theory that it really works well when they have those breaks, all the way through the year.
Right.
And year-round schools do tend to have
year-round schools meet the same number of days. It's just
correct. Yeah, they go 9 weeks and off for 3 or something like that. They change their planning up, but there's a lot of theory out there. It's interesting because I just read some research actually today that was talking about measuring students at college age, which you and I were talking about earlier. Measuring students about how they learn and when they learn best, and how long-term memory actually is approached, and skills that we care about year over year, how that's done. They actually said that the more of the what we call inconsistent basis is better than hitting it hard every day. Like math facts. You think about math facts and you think, we need to drill math facts. And actually, they say intersperse those math facts with other types of math, and the student will retain it more. The research is actually backing that up.
And Einstein used to get blocked, and he would go out and take a walk or go out and play.
Right. He took naps.
and
naps.
Had some things to say about that was so
you need the downtime.
Yeah.
And so how we go about it now in the South, when we don't have AC in all the schools and the school buses don't have AC, I think it's foolish when we look at today, that you have a 101 degree day, and then you have this heat index of 108, 19, and then you think about sending kids and putting them in an unair conditioned school bus.
How many of our school buses? I agree. How many of our that begs the question, how many of our school buses don't have air conditioning?
I think the majority of them do not have
Really?
AC.
Really?
Of school buses.
I don't think
any
that's
of them
the norm.
do. Yeah, I think that's the norm. The school buses do not have AC.
Oh, wow.
And so you're talking about this heat of the day when they're going home. It's the hottest part of the day, and so all they have is the air blowing in through the windows. And they're already hot and sweaty from
the
day of school and being out and about. So I think those are my biggest concerns going back. And you think about those things as we do checkups to get ready. Parents are doing the eye checkups and the ear checkups and making sure that they're doing all those things. Hydration is a big factor, and a lot of parents don't think about that. And the impact of what that hydration has on the brain is incredible.
What is our body? 70% water.
Well, our brain's 80%. So
Wow.
you have to think we have to use 80% of the fluid that you take in there in the day goes to your brain for your brain just to function. So if you're not taking in an adequate amount of fluid, then your brain is feeling that. And so that's when the short-term memory loss starts. So headaches and so a lot of times when kids are complaining that they have a headache, they haven't drank enough.
They're
and during
thirsty.
the day, there's
They're
not
really
enough
thirsty.
time. Right.
You've talked about that several times. What was the kind of rule of thumb on how much a kid should drink?
You should drink half of your body weight in ounces of water just to maintain. Okay.
And that includes kids.
That includes the kids, and plus 20% when it's high humidity, which we have. So you really have to think that's a lot of fluid for this, for this girl, that's a lot of fluid. So you have to really be drinking a lot when you have that in. So that's really, really important. And a lot of people, short-term memory loss is a big deal because it's what your teachers were speaking something and sharing something, and you've got to say it right back. So if you're not doing that, that's really important for our babies because, of all ages. And you'll find, interestingly enough, that even seniors who start experiencing some of these issues, it's because they're not drinking enough. Because they don't feel like they're as active, they don't drink and hydrate as much, and so then you'll find a lot of seniors that start having that memory loss.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now, in preparing our children, Denise, is it kind of broken down with stages, different stages, how to prepare? I'm thinking in terms of young children. I'm thinking especially in terms of first time, let's say, going to pre-kindergarten or even to kindergarten, although most children today are going to have had some pre-K, I suppose.
It's interesting because the things that we have to be aware of, there's some things that are common, such as the hydration that are common,
right.
But there's a lot of things that are not because you've got the little bitties, the preschoolers and the kindergartners, those that are just starting school for the first time, they've got another factor in there that a lot of the older kids don't, which is fear. And that's something that's not often addressed. Fear and anxiety about the school year is a big factor.
We as parents may be super excited. Oh, they're going to go to school. Wow, what a difference! But you're bringing up such a wonderful point. I think we have to remember, from that child's perspective, and how important is it to let our child know? Okay, well, your schedule's going to change. Your life is going to change, and this is what it's going to be like starting in a week or a week and a half or whatever.
Yeah, and my suggestion is you actually start now. So we're about 2.5 to 3 weeks out, depending on which district that you're in. My suggestion is you actually start your school bedtimes and routines now, because children need to adjust to those routines and they need time to do that. And sometimes it requires weaning down. A friend of mine was talking. She said, "Well, we've been staying up till 10 p.m. every night throughout the summer." And I said, "Well, then it's 9:30 tonight, right?
Yeah.
Because you need to start weaning that down." And she was like, "Yeah, and I've been letting them, watch TV, and I've been letting them do da-da-da-da." And like, those are the things that you've got to start weaning back right now and preparing them, because there are changes that have to be made to your schedule.
Yeah.
And especially if your child has a learning disability, like attention issues, organization is extremely important for them. And I know a lot of parents who pull their kids off their ADD medication over the summer, and then they put them back on it first day of school. Well, it's not really a good plan, because
there's some brain research that is saying that that we're even doing, you can pick up the neurological change in an untreated, if there's ADHD on board there and you don't treat it, there's some neurological consequences to that.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you have to look at that, and you have to say, if we're not treating it and we're allowing that to just go untreated for the summer, treating it during the school year, you still have to prep that. And there's a lot of parents that choose those options.
Right.
And I'm not criticizing, but I'm saying if you definitely need to be aware of preparing them.
For some parents, it's a balance thing, I think, because there are some medications, and maybe less so now, because the pharmaceutical companies have tried to develop medications to cut down on the side effects, but some of the medications that have been used in the past have affected appetite.
Sure.
And so therefore growth and development. So I think that, that has
It's
to
a
be that
balance.
balance thing.
There does
Yeah.
have to be the balance, but there does need to be preparation too, because you may not realize how much the child has changed over the summer in weight and height, and those things affect your medication.
Right.
So if you don't start early seeing those changes and saying, oh, you know what, this medication's not working like it did before.
So not to throw in one more thing to do, but if your child does take ADHD medication or maybe a pediatrician visit is in order prior to school to get weights and measurements and things like that, and ask, are we dosed correctly?
Getting my little kids ready to start school, that was fun, and that was I think I did a pretty good job of that. It was getting my big kids ready to go back to school. That was always way more of a challenge. It was hurry up and read those books. School starts in a week.
Get those summer reading
And I guess I would
read.
like to hear from Denise, how do we encourage, and what are some good tips for big kids? Because we talk about little kids all the time.
Well, we're going to talk. Let's talk about big kids. Let's take a break, and we'll come back, and maybe we'll dive in right there. Got the little kids covered. Let's cover the big kids, and even the college kids.
Well, those are the big kids.
Yeah, big kids. Okay. Strategies for Living, and Denise Walker, Executive Director of Learning RX, our life strategist today, as we talk about how to get our kids ready to go back to class. We'll be right back. Seven 8523 is Learning RX number. And why am I giving that number? Well, Denise Walker's with us today here on Strategies for Living, and here on 1017 FM and 710 KEEL. We're talking about getting our kids ready to go back to school. So 797-8523, Learning RX of Shreveport Bossier. It is located at 8856 Uri Drive, and ready to help kids.
And I'm going to throw out a special real quick before our time goes.
A special.
Yes. Our assessment to find out if your cognitive skills are on par where they need to be for school with a free consultation, normally $299. Going to do it 100 since it was 100 degrees today.
Oh, wow.
100 degrees, $100.
$100.
The lady's a marketing genius.
I love it.
She always brings great specials.
All right, if you're calling in Shreveport, 797-8523, put the 318 area code if you're outside of the 318 area, if you're listening to us in the southern Arkansas or East Texas, 318-797-8523. People there to answer the phone right now?
People are there to answer the phone, and let me tell you why it's important.
Okay.
Because we're talking about getting these kids ready, and we're getting all those checkups that we just talked about.
Yeah.
But we're forgetting to check that area between their ears. That's really important.
Why would we forget to check the brain?
That's it.
Yeah, because it's the brain that they're going to use over and over and over, and it's going to really determine mostly how successful they are.
And if you use a tutor year after year after year, then there is an issue. Yeah. And so you need to be getting the cognitive skill checked out. That's the biggest sign.
Well, we just use a tutor because my kid's lazy and they don't give it 100% effort. They're plenty smart. If they would just give it effort, they would make better grades.
And so tell me what your child's processing speed is like.
Well, I wouldn't know that, would I?
Exactly. And that's the point. And so this is the number one skill that we're starting to see a lot in the middle schoolers. So we talked about middle school and the importance. So the big change when you transition in between elementary, middle and high, in those big transitionary years, it's really important because we're changing classes now. We're having to keep up with multi-subjects now. We're having, so to speak, multi-dimensional windows that have to be open at the same time and memory from all of those things. So what is your child's memory like? What is your child's processing speed like? How do they auditory process, or how's their visual processor? If you don't know the answers to those things and you can't say that you know those answers, then you need to be getting that checked out. And if your child is going to play sports from cheerleading to soccer to football, you need to be getting an assessment because you need to know what the cognitive skills are at the beginning, because once they play sports, if they get too many head hits, it can lead to the CTE or to the concussion syndrome.
Right.
And that's super important. So when you think about those things, kids transitioning and trying to plan for their day, one of the biggest things you should say, how do you get those kids out the door? Well, they're eager to go see their friends. That's what they're eager.
Right.
They're eager to socialize.
Right.
And that's really the biggest thing that you have for them. But then you have the kid who is not eager to socialize, and there's your anxiety. So how do you balance those that are eager to socialize with those who are not eager to socialize and still make everybody happy, getting into school? And the biggest thing I can tell to you is listen. Make a really safe environment for your child to talk to you about it, and actually sit down and have time that you listen.
So you're saying ask your child about their feelings, his or her feelings.
Well, and more specifically, what I hear a lot of parents do, they say, how was your day?
Right.
Okay. Where do you want me to start, friend? Okay. So it's better if you ask specific questions. So how was math class today? Did you see so-and-so in your math class? Did you learn math facts? Be very specific in your questions, because that specificity will actually allow your child to answer without some of the angst and anxiety, and you'll hear more and they'll feel like you're hearing them more.
Right.
So being very specific with what you're asking. And if you're hearing them say, I just feel all fuzzy and everything's just like flying around in my head and I can't get it all together, there's an issue, folks. Go get it checked out.
Yeah, and then the place to start might be Learning RX, and this is a good time to do it. $100.
Yeah.
797-8523. How much do we sometimes, and we don't mean to do this as parents, but how much do we ignore and blow off our children's feelings? You'll get over that. That'll be okay. Don't worry about that.
Suck it up. Don't be a
Suck it up,
baby.
Buttercup. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how much do we give them a message by doing that? That, well, your feelings just really don't count, little Carla. You know, your feelings don't really count, little Reuben.
I think it's a huge factor.
And what's the impact of that?
It's a huge factor. You're a counselor. I'm not the counselor here, but when I work with the brain and I see the impact on that, one of the things we know from brain study is when kids especially that middle school age feel confident, then they outperform their peers. When they feel lack of confidence, they underperform, no matter what their IQ is.
Right.
So, I mean, there's all kinds of theories out there, but that socialization helps, and, when they're connected, that those things help. But what's really important to them is that knowing that they have a safe place to talk to their family about those things, and then that when I do have an issue, whatever the issue might be, you're going to do something about it. You're going to step up and you're going to say, I hear what you're saying. Let's go find out if there truly is an issue.
Right.
Or if, right now I'm seeing and hearing so much about dysplasia. It's kind of that fancy, thing. It's like, okay, school's coming back and my kid is just not wanting to get started. They just want to play their video games. Mm-hmm. They're not even interested in, going and picking out cute things for cute clothes, or, they're not even interested in picking out their school supplies for their, the older group now. And then you see moms are, it's just easier just to buy them online, than it is to go pick them out. The thing about it is right now for these kiddos is there is an interconnected world on the internet through their video games. That is relationship for them.
Yeah.
And so they're breaking away from that relationship into a new and different relationship, especially as we approach these going to college kids.
Right.
And that's a whole other factor. When you start looking at that, they're going from what I'm going to call safe space, where they've been, the big fish in the sea for a little while.
Pond to big pond, yeah.
Yeah, they're really moving on out, and they're moving to different ponds.
Yeah.
They've been separated from, and so that's a big factor, a big anxiety, and the schedule is different, balancing it all. The style of teaching is very different. And so if you don't know if your child's an auditory learner or a visual learner or whatever, they may struggle and even have some failures in the college environment because
they need to be responsible for knowing that about themselves.
Absolutely. Right? They have to have their own responsibility and their ability to speak up and own any of those weaknesses.
Because a professor is just going to put it out there.
Well,
absolutely.
And because half of my job as a parent was to be a good encourager and to be a good cheerleader. So if you have a kid who goes, I'm really scared to go to college, I'm afraid I'm not going to do well, and if I say, oh, you did great in high school and you did well, but if they could go to a third party and they can be tested and they say, you are off the chart at this, but this is an area that you could really work on, and here are some things that you can do when you go to college to work on these things. There's some power in that knowledge, and as a parent, what a gift to give my kids. I would have loved to have understood this or known this when I sent my kids off to
absolutely
school.
Absolutely. And we have a lot of even in college, I'm gonna say medical residents, people who've been in college for a long time. They've actually changed. They're coming in and saying, I need to know what type of learner I am. I've struggled and and I just barely cut the bar, and they're at the top of the field. And they're feeling this.
Yeah.
So if they're at the top of the field and feeling this, then think about all of the kiddos who really are experiencing this at all ages.
Do parents visit the classrooms anymore?
They're discouraged from it. I think that...
I don't know that that's a good thing.
It's more of a safety factor now, because we're in this world now where the safety factor is such a big factor.
That's sad.
And, there's so much volatility that now certain schools and certain times do encourage them. I mean, they have field trips and they have activities where they invite you in, but it's less than it used to be when I was in school, for sure. And so when I was in school, my mama come anytime and the door was open,
I walked into school any day that I wanted. I knew every teacher.
Visiting the classroom and being able to see where your child is and even meeting the teacher ahead of the start of school, I think are all positive things.
And they still have those meet the teacher nights, and they still have the PTA nights. I mean, they still have all of those things. The schools really want the parents to be involved, and that's
Right.
why they have the PTA things. But they also have,
They gotta
think of
balance
a
that
large
now. Yeah.
task of keeping these children safe in this
Yeah.
very volatile world that we live in.
Yeah, I
So
understand.
it's kind of that balancing game, and you can just imagine being the leader in charge of trying to make that balancing game happen on your campus, where you have, safety first and of all those children, and keeping the parent and child interaction at a good level.
Whether we're talking about a kindergartner going to a new school, or a middle schooler starting their new school, or a high schooler starting their new school, or a college student starting their new school, there's going to be some nerves, going to be some anxiety, isn't there? How do we normalize that? How do we, Denise and Carla, how do we begin to, let our young people know, okay, it's okay, it's normal to be nervous about the first day of school, whether it's kindergarten, middle school, high school, or college?
I mean, Denise may disagree. I think they have to know what the more information I can give them, and then the better I can prepare them. If we can go and walk around the school, if we can look at the school, if we can go and meet the teacher, if we can go and, for me, it was if they were well prepared. If they had everything on their list, and they knew
Right.
where they were going, and they knew who their teachers were, and they knew, if we went and checked the classes, what class are we in? What teacher do you have? Do you know how to get there? And then even off when I sent them off to college, if we spent some time on campus and made sure that they were ready and their rooms were ready and for me, that helps. I don't know if it helps me more than them, or maybe it helped us both. But that was empowering for me.
It does visually help the brain. So, I mean, that exposure, and we know that we record a lot of things visually to the brain, so that really does help the brain. And then just being real about the anxiety and saying, it is real, and,
Yeah.
you can do it.
It's real, and it's normal to have
It's
jitters.
normal, and
Yeah.
here are some things that you can do. And then also, there is something that I think is super powerful in this world of, cell phones and the things that we have. When setting up a safe word, an encouraging word, when the child, and maybe just a letter, that you say, send me an A, and that means I'm having anxiety, and I can send something back that encourages you, a word that encourages you. I mean, it's a simple thing to do,
Yeah.
to build that in.
It's a great idea.
Because they're using the phones now to teach. They're
Yeah.
allowing the kiddos to have the phones because in the high school, because they're using them to teach. I think those are things when they're being bullied. Send me a B if somebody's bullying you, and just send me the B, and I'll know, and I can, we can talk about it. Just these simple things, simple tools to reduce the anxiety as they begin in that preparation for the year.
If your kid brings his or her own lunch, maybe little
Good
notes
notes,
snuck in,
absolutely.
into the lunch box. If they
Right.
don't, just a text message, or
Right,
you
sure.
know, hey, thinking of you.
Yeah.
Hang in there,
little
kid.
bitty things.
Yeah.
Little bitty things that you can do.
Denise Walker, our life strategist today, talking about getting our kids ready. I was too cool for school. How do you get me ready, huh?
Might be a tough
Yeah.
topic.
Oh, okay. We'll be back. talking about getting our kids ready to go back. Welcome back to Strategies for Living here on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan, and Denisa Walker, the executive director of Learning RX Shreveport Bossier at 8856 Uri Drive. 100 degrees today, so $100. Wow.
That's right. And I'm going to brag a little bit about Learning RX Shreveport.
Yeah?
Can I do that?
Go, of course.
I just went to the convention, the National Convention for Learning RX, and we got top honors in customer service out of the whole nation.
Wow.
We got
Congratulations.
we got top honors as being a center, and I won what's called the Crystal Award for 10 years of serving the Arklatex and delivering service. So I was very proud of my team and very proud of
be proud of yourself
work.
too. Yeah,
that's a big deal.
What a deal.
I don't know if people realize what a gym we have here in Learning RX, because I mean, are we the only one in the state?
We are the only one in the state where there's not any even in probably 300 miles around us.
Wow.
It's incredible. Wow. You have to go to Dallas or all the way over to Atlanta, Georgia, or north to Tennessee.
Wow. Okay, so if you want get your child's brain ready to go back to school, help them learn easier, think faster, perform better, no better time than to pick up the phone right now. $100 assessment, and that's saving big money.
It's saving big money. It's usually $299. So.
Yeah, so right now, you got to call now, though, 797-8523. So this would be a gift that you could give your kids, you could give yourself.
Grandparents,
yeah.
It's a great gift.
Great gift, great investment in your grandkids. Pick up the phone, call 797-8523. Important that you book it now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Really important. And, we were talking about the difference when we were in the break about boys and girls' brains and, how they develop. And I want to share it in a story manner without using the child's actual name. But we have had some incredible stories over the last little while. I had a little guy who came in and he couldn't read, didn't know his letters, didn't know his numbers, and, had what we call an LDIQ, around the 70 range of IQ, which was, that means he's struggling. That means he's really, really struggling to do so. And 6-month intervention, and he's reading, doing all of his math facts, is on grade level, and had a 20-point IQ jump.
Wow.
In 6 months.
Like crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful?
So he's from way under one standard deviation below the mean.
Correct.
Which means, he's in a low percentile.
Correct.
And you got him into the norm.
What we consider normal.
Normal, because he got up to an IQ of 95.
Right.
We just changed that kid's life. His chances of graduating from high school and getting a job and not going to prison and not having an addiction.
Literally.
And everything that we deal with, those drastically dropped.
And headed to college instead of a low income job. Say for one IQ point, it's equal to $10,000 over your lifetime. So, I mean, if you think of the investment there, that's huge. I mean, for that kid's a $200,000 investment. I mean, there's not a lot of places you can put your money in and get $200,000 back, right?
No, we spend more on baseball cleats.
That's the truth.
That's
the truth. And the other little story I wanted to share was, as we were talking about these middle school kiddos and, the adventure, I had a little middle schooler who came in, and she was testing at 3rd grade math and 4th grade reading. And she wanted to go to private school, but of course couldn't get into any of the private schools, at that point in time. And so she definitely had to have a little bit of a longer, intervention program. But I'm so excited and actually going to do something special with her. But she is, she's starting 8th grade, so in the fall. I mean, you think about that. She was put into 6th grade last year.
And she's already
struggled, and she got to
grade.
Skip 7th grade, and she's going into 8th grade in the fall.
Jeez.
Isn't that incredible?
That's so much fun.
It is so much fun. And so those things are the fun things. So when we talk about how those brains are different, those boys that struggle, they have that gross motor skill. They need to be active. They need to be out there. They need to be doing those things that involve running and jumping and doing all those things, and that's hard in hot weather. And it's hard balancing that in a classroom when you have the girls who are fine with having their pretty paper with their coloring sheets. So balancing all that for a teacher is a challenge, when they're little bitties.
One of the things that I think is important for us to not ignore is new beginnings.
That's right.
And you know, every school year brings new beginnings. That's one of the great things. So, you know, maybe for kids who have struggled in the past, I would ask you, Denisa, how important is right now new beginning, no matter what the past has been, and what's the best way we can address that, especially if we have kids who have struggled in elementary school or middle school.
Well, we have to
high
own
school.
that.
Yeah.
We have to own the past,
Yeah.
but we don't have to dwell on the past, right? So we have to own it and know that there were problems in the past. So let's look at where we're headed and let's make a plan. See, that's what happens to us so often, is that we wait to scramble at the last minute to get a
Right.
plan instead of starting to plan and say, you know what, we're about 2.5 weeks from school. Let's get an assessment, find out where your weaknesses are, and let's go ahead and start making a plan for what we're going to be successful this school year, how we're going to do that.
This assessment includes things like you've mentioned IQ. It's about working memory.
Right.
It's about basically how your reasoning, your logic skills,
Absolutely. Underline math skill.
your processing speed,
Right.
auditory processing, your visual processing, the long-term memory, and then just broad attention, right?
Right. All of the above.
So you're getting a tremendous amount of information then on your child, and I'm making the assumption here. I guess I'm asking. Okay, we assess. They can come in. They get the assessment. $100 if they call today.
Right.
But then you're going to go beyond that, and you're going to say, okay, here's the plan.
Yeah.
Here's the plan to
yeah.
address
So
this.
to me, that's the biggest factor, because
Yeah.
if I, as a parent, a free educational consult, you're going to walk in. I get to come into your office and sit down with you for an hour, and I'm going to tell you everything about my child's past and where we're headed, and you're going to help me do a plan for my child for this next school year. For $100, I get the assessment and this consultation.
Yeah.
That's beyond.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, you guys may call it brain training, but I think it's life-changing.
It definitely is life changing.
You know, because in the old, I mean, this bears repeating. We used to think that our kids were born with whatever brain they had. Their
Yeah, and you had to play the
Right.
you had to
And,
play
you
the
know,
hand.
Yeah, so we could educate them, we could make them smarter. They could go to a good school. Now we realize we can change their IQ,
That's right.
and that blows my mind, because we didn't think that before.
Yeah.
Right.
Or we didn't know that before. So now what we're learning with the brain mapping and neuroplasticity and everything else is we're learning that we have way more control. We can't make them taller, but we can make them smarter.
That's right.
Yeah, and we can grow their brains. We may not be able to see it other than, you know, through assessments
Right.
and through pre-assessment, post-assessment.
Right.
You know, implementing a plan, but the results can change lives.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Just think about like in that going to college age, because I've got one in college and one headed to college this fall. So
Oh, wow.
when you think about that, ACT scores, they determine which college you go to, and they're based on IQ.
Absolutely.
So if your skill set's low IQ, low ACT, then you just limited your ability of
cut
where
down.
you're going to go. You
Yeah.
cut that down automatically. And so if you can boost that at the beginning of the stage, I mean, if you can start when they're middle school or even before that, and you say, hey, I can boost my child's IQ, which in turn boosts their ACT score,
Right.
which in turn boosts their college that they get to go to. Look, how is that not a game changer? And it totally is a game changer for many, many. And I see that on a daily basis.
It's been 100 degrees today, and it's so Denisa Walker says assessments, they're $100 right now. 797-8523. 797-8523. If you're calling from outside the Shreveport-Bossier area, put the 318 area code in there. 797-8523. Give a call. $100 assessment right now. Learning RX, 8856 Uri Drive in Shreveport. We will be back to wrap this thing up with Denisa here on Strategies. Stay with us. Dance it in, Carla. Come on.
Tay, we're doing
There
chair
you go.
dancing?
Thank Ruben to, he's gonna throw these little ditties in. Welcome back into Strategies for Living and 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL.
He's been working hard this week.
He has been working. He's been outdoing
It's
himself.
no big deal.
Learning RX. Denisa Walker, Executive Director of Learning RX, shows up today, says it's 100 degrees out there. Okay, assessments today are $100, but the window's closing. What is it? It is now 7:56. You got 4 minutes. You got to pick up the phone and call 797-8523. Tick tock. Okay, but you still got time. There are people there answering the phone. 318-797-8523. Lots of money off. I mean, the regular price on this is $299 and $100 today.
And again, the biggest feature to me is that educational consult.
Yeah.
The free educational consult right now, when you're just headed back to school, is priceless.
Absolutely.
Help you get a plan for your year, moving forward.
And again, new beginning, new school year, new beginnings are so important. Yeah. How do we need to kind of put the ribbon, the fancy ribbon on this, Denisa? We've covered a lot of ground today.
I think we need to remember that the most important thing is that you're a good listener for your kid, that you ask those questions as they're starting the year, that you ask the questions that are specific and that they're not just big, that you give them those safe words or letters so that they can contact you when they are in an unsafe or they're not feeling good situation.
Great idea. Yeah.
I think those are, all great things that you can do for the year, that you reaffirm that it's okay to be the nervous and anxious and that's normal. And here is how you can cope with that. I know one of the things when I'm nervous and anxious that I do, which is a kind of a brain technique, get your brain off thinking about that. I count backwards by threes from 100. 97, 94, 91. And actually my brain starts focusing on that and the anxiety, I can breathe again.
Wow.
So that's an easy technique that you can do. And you can do that when you're in pain or frustrated or, losing your temper. And instead of that count to 10 technique, make it a little harder. Of course, if they're first graders don't count backwards by threes, maybe count backwards by ones. Right, be reasonable with that. But as adults, we can do that,
Absolutely.
So just remembering that these new beginnings are there. And if they're not excited about school, it's okay. It's okay not to be excited about school, but this is still a new adventure. And again, like Carla said, take them and help them visually walk through that campus.
Absolutely.
Even if you cannot go physically, do it virtually.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. You can do that now.
You can do it virtually.
You can. Yeah, virtually in most all schools. So good to have you back. Thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me come.
You're always a great life strategist. You've got an open invitation always. Folks, 797-8523. 318-797-8523. You've got a couple minutes left, so pick up the phone and call Learning RX and take advantage of the $100 deal. Carla McCormick, you've done it again.
I love when Denisa comes.
I do too. Reuben Wright, you've done it again.
Yes, I'm afraid I have.
Folks, you've done it again. Thank you for tuning in to Strategies for Living. We've been brought to you by KEEL, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. Brought to you by Jerry Anderson State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacobs Well Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call that you could make, who would you call? What would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For PLPC Carla McCormick, for Denisa Walker, and for Reuben Wright, I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. See you next time on Strategies for Living.